when I left off, I was copied the top part of this diagram down to the bottom, left the lines in just to demonstrate exporting and the relative file size of the page here to how it exported and brought into Word. Now I'm going to go into and start playing with this sitemap in terms of building it out in terms of the content for my recipe site that I was using as an example. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to delete this copy I made, and then I'm going to zoom in to the top here, scroll down, and let's get up there and get to my position. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the question is how wide and how deep do you go with your diagram so it fits into a space that's portrait, 8.5 by 11. So I keep that in mind as I put this together. And I'm looking at my main buckets up here. Main courses, desserts, appetizers, soups, vegetarian. I'll leave it at that. If this was my page width, obviously I could go wider. And then I want to work on some of these lines. So one way I say click line here. Well, let me try that again. If you, a way to sort of, let's say I'm going to build off of, well, okay, so I click on this and I click the line tool, and then I can just start here, and then I drag this around to where I want to connect. And then what's nice is it automatically sort of lines it up on the other lines that were there already. So vegetarian, click on the line tool, drop and drag to where I want to connect, and it puts that in there. So now another level down. So now these are incorrect, obviously, from an earlier version. So types of desserts. So there are pies, cakes. Now another tool, another way to do a quick entry is you click this line with a box. It assumes, actually I do it up here. Click the line with the box. It assumes I want a child box to desserts. And I just go right here, wherever I want. And I can put cookies. Now, it made it the same color as the parent. If I click on this, I can get that line to line up. But what I'm doing, I'm color coding the depth into the site. So I really want it to be the same color as cakes and pies. So I'll go up here, and then if I click over here, now you see that when I click on it, I can use the fill tool up here, and I select a color. I'm going to select that yellow color that I'm using for this second layer, second depth on my sitemap. So I'll just pull this in here, make this a little smaller. Okay, let's go to soups. Now the other thing to do at this point, well, when we go into soup, remember we talked about vegetarian as a type of food and not a category of where as a course. So I'm going to go here and well, for soups, there's a couple ways I could just copy one of these so I keep the color. Go over here, drag it over, and types of soups would be cold, hot, chicken, as a type of soup. Other types I can do, like thick soups. And I'll do vegetarian. Double click the word, control click, gives me a spelling. Okay. And now I connect these with lines, so I can just start with here, do a line tool, drag it down to this one. And I keep going. Now I don't want to do cold to hot because it is all these belong to soups on the same level, and this implies if I want cold to hot, that hot belongs to cold. So I go back to soups, click the line tool, and I just keep going. And the chicken. Let me pause and set this up and I'll show you how to align things. So I've connected lines from soups to all the types of soups. If I click on a line here, I can drag it around to the side. And this one. And so forth. And okay, and they're all okay, so there. So now what I do with this soup, this line, oh, and it gets cold here, right? Spin to the side. Drag that over here. Now if I drag up here and I drag this one to the side, and it gets a little laborious. If you think about this ahead of time a little bit, you can build things in a progressive way so you don't have to sort of go back and reorient everything. But notice finally this one here is still on the top, drag this to the side. But once I get everything in the right side and lined up correctly, it lines up the lines very nicely. Move this over a little bit, and there you go. So soup's going down to all these. So that's one way you can go horizontally, as a way to get things into sort of more of a portrait mode. These could all be closer together, so if I go up here, put that there, and if I scrunch these all together, not worried about, particularly about getting it exact, because it does a pretty good job because it's clicking to the grid. But once I get it, I can select these guys, surround them. Let's get shift click to make sure they're all selected. So make sure you have them all selected. Now when I distribute vertical, center, bingo, there we go. Nicely lined up. They don't have to be this wide. So if you collect them all and slide them in like that, there we go. Of course, vegetarian needs to be, I could make the text smaller, so I want to make them all smaller. So you want to come up with a model to use early that you can copy and use other places. Okay, so if I select one box, edit text, make this a little smaller, so it looks like with this program that I have to do one at a time. So it's really important to kind of decide on things ahead of time so you can be consistent for different layers and levels of your sitemap. Because if I double click, if I shift click these together and there's no text thing, there's no way to change the text for both of them at the same time. So that is a drawback to this program. And it doesn't look like I can create styles. Although up here, if I click on this, it's not like I can create a custom style. So I'm going to go in here and click my thing, make it 12 for all of them. And click on this, click on the text, make it 12. So now that I have one of these set up, I'd want to use this as sort of as a model for all the others. So when I go into vegetarian, or I go into appetizers, let's say, and actually there would be a cold and a hot under appetizers as well. And I grab like that. And notice that the color's the same, which is important because they're the same level, hierarchical level in my sitemap. Grab this one on the edge like that. Put it around the side. Put this one around the side. Put this connector on the side. And now I need to make a little more space. If I, okay, go to the left like that. Okay, so now I want to, so it looks like I'm going to vertical on my second layer. Little things like the space between these, you want to be consistent. And I can nudge it over with my arrow key. And since it's aligning to the grid and background, generally it'll line up correctly. So this one I started horizontal, so I'm just going to drag it around. Just one at a time. So it can be a bit laborious. Now if you're there we go. Now we put everything like this. It starts, get everything lined up. And bingo. Get this same width. So I'd like this to be smaller. Same width as these. Want things to be consistent. You want it to be the same width as the other yellow boxes. And this is where if I was to select this, these guys, and then I say match dimensions, match height. There you go. And I can get these all to line up. So then I could say, okay, match this to the top of these. So I'm going to say, in this case, align objects, vertical top. Then I can see, what makes this really start looking professional and good is everything lines up and aligns properly with everything else, depending on the level. And that starts looking pretty good. I want to move these over. Actually, I want to grab these guys, and I can move them over like this. You can select them all like that as well. Oops, that's interesting. Got the skew button there, didn't expect that. There we go. And bring main courses over, and then I can start building main courses as well, and so forth and so on. So if I had another level, so at this point, let's say cold soups, I wouldn't necessarily list all the cold soups at this point, since they're just recipes and they're all cold, and there's no other layer below. So what I could do is I'll grab that and copy it. Now at that level, I'm going to give it a new color. No, not blue we're using, so I'm make it a light green. There we go. And I'll say soup list. Or just soups. Whatever. So then I'm going to make it look like a stacked list. And bring this in like that. And I'll zoom in so I can work on this a bit better. Okay. Oops. You can see where I'm going with this. It's going to look like a stack of pages. Okay. Then I can group these. Right there. Now it's grouped, and I can drag it around like that, and then I can link it as a group. And I can link it as a group, and I can drag it around. I can put this out here if I want. There you go. So I can link as a group, and let me draw it a little bit. So that's how you can deal with groups. Like in your hospitals, you'll have like a variety of services, which, and you see I still have a fair amount of space to go horizontally and vertically. So I can really get a fair amount in. So if I was to, let's say, if I had twice as many of these, I just copy the whole thing. Yeah, I can get pretty wide. I can get a pretty wide map on this page. And I'll just delete some of these lines so we can see kind of what this might look like. So that starts looking like, and I'll get rid of this one. So that starts looking like a site with some pretty sophisticated, high level, fair number of buckets on the first level, fair number of pages here, page groupings here, and so forth. So let's export this and see how this looks when I import it into Word. We did this already earlier. So go to export, export as image, and I'm diagram area only, no transparent background, original size. Let's see what high resolution does as opposed to original export size. See how that does coming into Word. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to my Word document. Can delete that one. Insert picture from file. There it is. There you have it. And now let's blow this up and see how this looks. Blowing up. Nice. So the high resolution one does a great job, and that's what I would use as opposed to the original resolution. See, it does a really nice job fitting it all in there. And I think in Creately you can play with the size of the text and so forth. You could annotate this if you wanted in Word. If you click on this and position, and you say not in line with text, more layout options, that's not the one I want. So way of getting this to wrap text, there we go. Front of text, you can drag this around whatever you want, and you can bring in text objects, like if you were to insert a text object, text box, there we go. Draw a text box. And I could annotate it, and I could say here like top level, right? And then I can take this and put it anywhere in relation to my diagram. And I could annotate it this way as well, right in Word. And I could insert arrows. So insert shapes, arrow. So by using the strengths of two different programs, I can create a pretty nice combined diagram, combining elements from each in order to tell the story I want to about a sitemap. And trying to just get this guy horizontal. There we doesn't want to, and it doesn't really matter. So you can see, so that's how you can do some pretty interesting things combining the diagramming capabilities of two different programs, using Creately to create the sitemap. I mean, you could do that in Creately as well. If I was to go back here, I could, there is a text element. I could write top level. Zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. And I could put this over here. can insert a line, and then when you can add arrows to this line, and then line can be independent of anything else, and you can draw things that way as well. So you can take your choice about where you want to annotate your sitemap to help explain what's going on and so forth. So that's it. Those are some of the basics using Crately and to make your sitemap. The last thing I'm going to do is, I don't know, I like the way that overlaps. I wonder if I can, there we see if that's better. I connected to the last box, so it's not overlapping the other boxes. That's just me being there. That looks better. Okay, enjoy. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that's helpful.